Hello, you beautiful Buddhas in disguise, and welcome to another video of my non-dual teachings, where I will want to go into the question of what is Buddhism, because this is, for the Westerners, a question that sometimes we can't really put an answer to because of the nature of what this teaching really is, or what this showing actually is. So, as usual, caveat, I'm not going to answer this question precisely because that's just not possible in anything that we do, but I'm going to play around the ideas of what we think we know on reality, because this is all about reality and trying to understand our true nature. So I won't extend too much myself on explaining the different aspects of Buddhism, but I do want to mention a couple of things just to put things in order. So the first thing is that Buddhism is derived from the word Buddha, which means awakened, or the awakened man. And while there are several Buddhas that we can talk about, it is really centered on somebody who is called Gautama Siddhartha in the 600 BC era. There's not quite a date on when he was born. They didn't really keep track of these things, and in the East, they didn't consider it that important. It is us, the Western people, who are obsessed with numbers and dates and facts and all of this. There's actually a very, very beautiful culture that develops from this unnecessary, or the feeling that is unnecessary to keep track of things. Rather, it's more important to keep the core of the teaching. So the Buddha, Gautama Siddhartha, has a long story that I'm not going to tell here, but he was just a regular man, just like Jesus and anybody else, and he became what we call enlightenment. And that's a word that I myself try to play around with, because we have given too much of a big connotation to it. So, but what is enlightenment? I have talked about this in other videos in my podcast, actually, so you can go listen to that. But the Buddha is simply reference to that state of mind, or to that achievement. A little bit more of history to Buddhism is what's called Advaita, which is non-duality. It means not two. It's just another way of saying one. But them being clever as they are, of course, and realizing that one actually means two, three, and multiples, then they simply say it is not two. It is something that doesn't have an opposite. And that is the core of the teachings of Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, and everything else in the East. So with that in mind, we're talking about something, but we can't really categorize it. And this is where I want to take this video to. Usually in the West, at least how I grew up, I saw Buddhism as a sort of religion, just another religion in the box of all the world views that we have on spirituality. And so the first item that we need to cover is spirituality. What is it that Buddhism has with spirituality? Well, let's define first what spirituality is in just common terms. For example, spirituality is just the need for us as humans to try to understand that which is ineffable, that which is not easily explainable in words or in text or in any experience that we can convey or translate to somebody. So spirituality goes beyond this realm. It goes into the realm of thoughts, of ideas, of all of these abstract experiences that we have. So spirituality is approached by Buddhism, of course, as, it's not even approach, it's just that comes out of Buddhism. So I want to use Buddhism as something that is a source where things come out, rather, as opposed to a method in which to explore things. And so spirituality is just something that we need, something that we have innate in us. This is why it has always been a staple in our history. It's not like something that decays over time, or there is a trend, although there are trends in spirituality, of course, in time, but there's always spirituality present. Just like there is the need for trying to understand reality. It's part of it. It's part of our nature. So this is why Buddhism is very much consider a spiritual practice because it does give us that idea that we are approaching that understanding of the metaphysical reality, or that which lies beyond our physical means of understanding and measuring and sensing reality, actually. So that's why Buddhism is strongly associated with that. But there's also an association with philosophy. We say it's not a religion because it's not something that has a sacred text that everybody worships, and it doesn't have the categories of this and that. But in terms of religion, actually, we can say that anything can be a religion. We have, for example, and I used this, I thought it was really funny to mention this because there is something that you might know, which is called Jediism, believe it or not. Now, Jediism is derived from Star Wars, the acclaimed trilogy, or I don't even know where they're up to now, 9 movies of the universe of Star Wars. And Jedis are a sort of religion or spiritual side of this universe. And so people actually in our planet started calling themselves Jedis, and they form the religion of Jediism. Of course, this one isn't approved for reasons that go beyond the scope of this video, but just it goes to show how people can associate a belief system with religion. So Buddhism can be a religion, for sure. And there are, in fact, it is considered a religion in many ways. And there are, in fact, several religions based on Buddhism. Just like there are different religions, several religions based on Christianity or Jesus, who is another person who is equal to the Buddha in many senses. So, Jediism is not something that actually exists as a religion. However, people do believe in it. And so Buddhism can be believed as a religion as well. And that's why we have religions based on Buddhism. So based on this, you can say, well, it could be a religion as well. But it is not religion. It is more, or it goes beyond religion. And so philosophy is one word that we use sometimes to refer to Buddhism because it satisfies that need for explaining reality. And philosophy is concerned with understanding that, with trying to understand reality from a non-scientific point of view. And this actually came out as a split in our Western civilization. I mean, the split between science and philosophy, only because we went away from spirituality as part of our philosophy. We divided what is called spirituality and religion, and philosophy and science on a more academic study. And so we have these splits in Western world, and this is why it gets difficult for us to try to describe something as simple as Buddhism, because we have made a split on all of this. And this is why you can see that Buddhism is actually associated with all of these terms, because it doesn't take anything out, it doesn't split itself from anything. And so when we talk about philosophy, we're talking about a way in which poetically we describe reality. It's a very artistic way of articulating how we perceive reality. And that is what philosophy is for us in the Western world. But there is no such thing as a philosophy in Buddhism. It's just that we associate it with that because it does tick the boxes on what philosophy is. So far we have that it ticks the boxes on spirituality, it ticks the boxes on philosophy, and it goes into science as well, believe it or not. This is why we find so many parallels. For example, the Buddha said something that is called kalapas, and these are particles that come into existence and disappear. And this disappearance is just coming and going all of the time. Well, that was over 2,000 years ago, and we have found this as antiparticles, and even more in quantum physics. So that's a pretty cool relatedness that it exists within the study of Buddhism, or the understanding of Buddhism, or the living of Buddhism, and what we know as science. But it goes beyond that, because the real key in science here with Buddhism is that it is a way to explore the self which is the only thing that actually exists when you think about it. When you go deep into the exploration of who you are, you find that there is nothing else but you. Anything that you perceive has to go through the filter of your mind, and thus it is interpreted by your mind. So anything that is beyond the mind is simply a field that can be interpreted in many ways. And so this is why in the Western world we have so many issues, because we are all trying to interpret reality and trying to agree strongly on those points. Whereas when you go into yourself and you realize that this is a simple field of interpretation, much like a Rorschach blot, where you simply see an image and you interpret whatever it is in there. Well, the same thing. This is what reality is. So Buddhism concerns itself in what we call science, in the same idea that we explore ourselves and reality as a result from knowing that we are the filter, that what we perceive is the filter. And so our experience is actually what's causing the interpretation. So we go into our experience and we delve deep into experience. Now, if you know science, you know that experiments are done on observation. And if you're a true scientist, you would just record what you see in the experiment as the observation, and then that will create a result. So, how does Buddhism does this? Or at least the idea of Buddhism. You explore your experience and you observe what is happening and you make notes. And this is where the teachings of Buddhism actually go deeper and deeper into solving any mystery that we have on the self, revealing the one connectedness that we have, which circles back to spirituality, because spirituality in all senses is always concerned with trying to show the connectedness or the divine nature in all of us. Of course, some religions that have taken spirituality to another degree of separation, then yes, they would not say that we're all together in this, or that we're not all one. But the vast majority of the religions, and for sure all of religions, have always had a root. I should have to say the vast majority of religion, because some of them are actually based on separation. But the vast majority of them have roots into oneness, into this mystical experience, which, by the way, is the ineffable part of true spirituality that cannot be explained. And Buddhism explores even this and has teachings about this. And so we have science again involved in Buddhism. Finally, medicine may sound a little bit strange here in my list. Why? Because medicine is associated in our Western world with the allopathic system that we have, which treats symptoms. And the symptoms are simply cut off or alleviated over time. But this is not true medicine. Health starts with the mind, and we all know this at this point, even though our science doesn't want to admit this because of why? The split that happened between philosophy, or rather spirituality, and science. When in the East, science, what we call science, and what we call spirituality are both merged together. And the philosophical part of this understanding is really what's being taught. Philosophy would be the way in which Buddhism combines spirituality and science. And I'm using Western terms here, so forgive me for using so much of this, but it's the language that we have. And so it's all part to understand reality, because we cannot separate them. Once we separate them, we find this issue that we have in our modern society, which goes even to the East, of course, even where these philosophies or this understanding, or Buddhism in general, Advaita, the non-dual teachings, originate from. So knowing that medicine is actually something that, in its true sense, it should be treating the root causes of our problems, then we know that Buddhism is also concerned with that, because it uses an approach which actually, if you want to see it a little bit more into our Western world, you can see it as psychotherapy. There is no or nothing more effective in psychotherapy that we know, any other method, than what is proposed by Buddhism, which is understanding the self, understanding the mind, the nature of mind, the nature of consciousness. And so as we explore this, we actually see reports of people saying, I healed myself through not Buddhism as a religion or as a science or some sort of philosophy that it triggers something in the brain and it's just a magic pill, but a true understanding of the self. And so Buddhism can be seen as just being the source of everything and not something in particular. So again, is it a religion? Yes, it really is a religion in some places. But is it meant to be a religion? No. Is it a spirituality, or is it connected to spirituality? Of course it is, because we do find that in our experience. We do find that what we explore in Buddhism is connected to our understanding of the metaphysical world, of the mind and everything else. And most importantly, the mystical experience, which is really what's interesting across the whole globe. All cultures, all civilizations, they've always shared the same type of experience, which we call mystical. And Buddhism explains the reason why this happens, explains the root of ourself, and it goes all the way up to the source of our beingness. So, of course, it is spiritual by nature. Is it a philosophy? Well, the teachings are usually presented as a sort of philosophy, not as an academic study, like we're so used in the Western world, but rather a philosophical study of having the student go through the process of experiencing the teachings, as opposed to just studying the teachings by book. And this is why you wouldn't find sacred books. Yes, there are some books who are very revered, but even the master would say that those books are not important. So do we care about Buddhism as a sort of philosophy? Well, only if we want to constrict it to that. Is it a science? Of course it is. It is actually the most pure form of science that exists, because anything else that we study outside of our mind is objective reality. We are segmenting ourselves from the world and studying it apart from us. This is why materialistic science is so concerned with trying to find particles. And lo and behold, there are no particles in the universe. There is only energy, and all energy is connected, and we find that in quantum physics. So the best form of science is the one that is legitimately interested in experience as the base of our understanding. And the only experience that matters is the one that is subjective. This, of course, doesn't ring true to our materialistic world, because we want to agree upon certain terms, and so we have laws and all sorts of divisions in our experience as humans living together. So, is it a science? Of course it is, and it's the purest form of science, because you're investigating your own self. Anything else, it's subject to interpretation, whereas you know exactly who you are. And is it a medicine? Of course it is, because it is the best form of psychotherapy that we have, and all this ease starts from the mind. If you don't understand your mind, then you don't understand what's happening in your body. Now, did I answer the question of what is Buddhism? Maybe not, but the best way I can summarize all of this is that Buddhism is our nature. Simple as that. That's why we know that each and every one of us is a Buddha by nature, because it is our nature. Buddhism is not something that is taught, or that is learned, or that is explored, that is found, or that we discover somehow. Buddhism is our nature, but we're so busy in our minds that we don't realize that nature. And this is why Buddhism transcends everything. It goes beyond anything that we know, because everything that we know is actually not going beyond, but going inwards of what we know, because it is our nature. And our nature is to experience spirituality, to wonder about spirituality, to delve deep into that. All our religions have been exploring this, and they are all always trying to find it outwards. Jesus was very well known. If you read Jesus' teachings, you will find that it's the same principles of Buddhism. Was it because he studied Buddhism? Maybe, but most likely it's because he went inside and he found it himself, being the master that he was. No surprise there. Is it a philosophy? Yes, of course it's a philosophy. We can go through that. So philosophy is our nature too. We want to explain everything. So it is ourself. Science, we are always concerned with trying to understand the world. Reality in general, that's what we want to understand, reality. So it is part of us. We are science. We are our own medicine. We always hear this nowadays because we finally understand that the body can heal itself, but it starts with the mind. It starts even beyond the mind, but I won't go into that because the mind is really what starts affecting the body. So we are our own medicine, our science, our philosophy, and spirituality. We are Buddhism. And anything that we explore in Buddhism is just trying to understand ourselves even more. The last thing that I would say is that Buddhism is not taught just by books or by teachings specifically or something. This is why it's so difficult for us Westerners to get a hold and grasp Buddhism, especially because our language has evolved in a materialistic paradigm, whereas languages in the East can grasp these concepts a lot easier. And so the only way, whether it be in Eastern language or in Western languages, like the ones we speak here, is that Buddhism is taught by dialogue, by simply talking about it and understanding it better. So that's my intention here with this series. I hope you're liking it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this rings true to your true Buddha, who is just simply there observing all of this from a true neutral point of view and enjoying this. So I come to the end of this video. I thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.